So Kildare 218, Laois 1-8 at O'Moore Park. I'm joined here by Jerry McNally from the Carlow Nationalist to go back over this game. We'll also speak a bit about the Carlow game yesterday against Wexford. Carlow's win against Wexford just towards the end of the video. But I suppose first of all, Jerry, a flat run win in the end for Kildare. I suppose 218 to 1-8, huge win that obviously puts them top of the group. What was your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, it was decent performance from Kildare. I think overall, I have to say, a little bit disappointed at Laois. They're obviously struggling at the moment, and they lost their opening 2 rounds, and they looked aside who are short of confidence. Kildare, I suppose, were coming off the defeat against Clare the previous week in Newbridge, and going down to Port Laois is always a difficult task. Although Kildare do have a good record there in the recent past, but there was a lot riding on this game because the group had really opened up following that defeat against Clare last week. So, Kildare were going into that game. They knew that they had to win, but even a win might not be enough to qualify for the promotion playoffs. So I suppose at the back of their minds, they knew they had to run up a big score. Ideally, of course, they had to get the win. First of all, that was the main thing. But if the opportunity arose, and that's how it kind of played out in the last quarter, they did get the chance to run up a big score. And in the end, it was a 13-point win. And probably for the second half performance, Kildare probably were justified for that size of a win. Kildare gave away an awful goal, a really terrible goal. They scored a wonderful goal themselves through Kevin Flynn. They got 9 points clear kind of early enough in the second half. And that looked like they were going to take control of the game from there. But they let Laois back into the game with an absolutely horrendous goal, a mistake by Paul Cribben, who gave the ball away. Mark Donlan had come out of his goal, the Kildare goalkeeper. Cribben tried to switch the play, and it ended up being a tap in for Gary Walsh into an empty net. And Laois got a couple of points after that. And Kildare were a little bit rattled following just the manner of that goal. But either side of the water break, then they got control, and they ended up getting 6 points off their bench then as well, which was a big impact. And kind of ran away with things really in the end.
Yeah, 100%. And I suppose, like you mentioned there, like racking up a big score and obviously finishing top of the group, I suppose I'd imagine a bit of relief for yourself, obviously, after the Clare defeat last week, because I suppose finishing top, like it's definitely, we've seen with Clare and Cork, 2 very competitive sides, and obviously Cork won today as well. So I'd imagine you're delighted anyway that Kildare have finished top spot and obviously avoided Mayo in the process as well.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And I mean, without being disrespectful to me, I'm certainly not taking anything for granted ahead of that semi-final. And you only have to go back to last year to see 5 second half goals for Meath against Kildare in Croke Park. So it's not an easy game at all, but it certainly on paper is a little bit easier than facing off against Mayo. I think Kildare and Meath games are generally 50-50, so Kildare will appreciate that game. It was a very late point in Ennis for Cork that kind of swung that in their favour. So slightly fortunate maybe to have ended up on top. It's a real mixed bag of a competition for Kildare. I wasn't really expecting a whole lot going down to Semple Stadium in the first game, but Kildare, performed quite well. Their second goal that day put them 9 points clear, and they probably should have won by a greater margin than they did. They kind of let Cork in for 5 late points that could have been very costly in the end when you see how close it was in the scoring difference. Then against Clare, they started very well that day, but weren't able to, do that over the full course of the game. In the second half, Clare got on top really and were deserved winners on the day. But it was interesting to hear Jack O'Connor speak after the game today. He kind of said that the smaller, tighter pitch in Newbridge doesn't really suit the style that he wants the team to play. And he said it was no coincidence that Kildare performed better in Semple Stadium and today in Port Laois on a wider pitch. And certainly somebody like Kevin Flynn, who scored in both of those games, he's a real raiding wing back, and it really has suited him in particular.
Yeah, 100%. And I suppose you kind of alluded to it there with Kevin Flynn. He obviously scored in the Cork game as well. I suppose he's been probably one of your top players, obviously playing a wing back. Like he's been top class, like scoring 1-1 in this game as well.
Yeah, and the point was superb. The goal was brilliant as well. And he kind of started the move with Paul Cribben had started the move for the goal. He made an interception and passed the ball backwards to Kevin Flynn, who was on his own 20-metre line. And the move from there flowed up the wing, and Cribben was involved again. But all the while, Kevin Flynn was still flying up on the outside. And I suppose the big thing is the goal against Cork, and also today, is that when he got into the positions, he was able to keep his composure and find a really good finish, because on a couple of occasions last season he got into good goal scoring good goal scoring positions and maybe panicked a small bit, or he tried to blast the ball, burst the back of the net, and ended up driving the ball over the bar. And Jack O'Connor, I suppose, had a bit of a word with him. He said after the Cork game that he had told him that he wants him to be more like Gooch when he gets in around those areas. I know you have to say those 2 goals really have been top class, and he brings a huge amount to the Kildare team. He's so quick. There can't be too many quicker players in the country than him, and as I said, he's really adding that composure now in his game as well. So he's a really top player for Kildare and very, very important to the team.
Yeah, and I suppose with the likes of Jimmy Hyland and Derek Kirwan obviously coming into the side, like obviously they were part of the 2018 side that won the All Ireland, the under 20 level. I suppose is there a bit of an expectation even with some of the Kildare lads coming through that maybe, you know, in the next kind of couple of years with some of those lads that you might be able to kick on a bit in Leinster or in the league, kind of maybe solidify a position in Division 1?
That'd be the hope anyway, yeah. Darragh's actually a little bit younger than that. He wasn't involved in that 2018 team. He's a couple of years younger than Jimmy, and I suppose Jimmy was the real star of that 2018 team, and I suppose he was the first to say that he found it difficult maybe in the first season or two in senior football. He's not the biggest of lads, but, you know, he really hasn't, you know, when they came back since the lockdown last year, he'd obviously looked like somebody who spent 6 months really training hard. And as I said, he's not the tallest, but he's filled out. He's very stocky, very strong, and knows how to use his body very well. He's equally 2-footed, which is a huge advantage. He can go left or right, which is, you know, very, very hard for defenders to defend against. And he was actually he was the most experienced player in the Kildare full forward line today, even though he's barely 23. Derek Cowan, as I said, he's just turned 21, and Brian McLaughlin, who would have been a big part of that under 20 side as well, with Jimmy Hyland as well, but he only made his debut today. He kind of missed the season through injury, so he's kind of a little bit behind, but he came into the team today. And the big impact as well has been from Shane O'Sullivan in the last couple of weeks. He again would be more Derek Kerwin's age, I think 20, and he scored 2 points off the bench last week against Clare. He was the one real positive in the second half for Kildare against Clare. He only came on for the last 10 minutes. He got a little bit longer today, maybe 15 minutes, and ended up with 3 points. And he's been a big find as well. So like Derek Kerwin has probably had his 2 quietest games so far. He really did explode onto the scene, and in the games last year, started very well against Cork this season. A little bit quiet against Clare last week, same again today. But from a Kildare point of view, it's been great then to see the likes of Shane O'Sullivan then coming in and picking up the slack. But yeah, Jimmy Hyland, not in the 20 group. Jimmy Hyland has been, he was the outstanding player in that year, and he really is developing now. Aaron Masterson was the captain of that team. In midfielder, big, tall, 6'5", high fielding midfielder. Started the last 2 games, maybe didn't play as well as he would have liked, but he came in today at half time and kicked 2 excellent second half points. So, you know, there is the bedrock of a young side there. It's a huge opportunity now against Meath in that promotion playoff to have a 1 game playoff for promotion to Division 1 against a local rival like that is just a huge opportunity. And are Kildare ready to go to Division 1? You know, you might say it's a bit too early, that they're not ready, but you can't kind of pick and choose these times. If Kildare have the chance to go to get promotion, they have to take it, and then it'll be up to those young lads to step up. But yeah, it's definitely a new side forming. There's only the one player, bar the reserve goalkeeper, there's only one outfielder over the age of 30, and that's Owen Doyle, who's barely 30. So it is an extremely young side at the moment.
Yeah, and I suppose from a Laois point of view, like obviously finishing bottom, losing all 3 games, you'd Gary Walsh in there with 1-5, Evan Carroll with 2 points. But I suppose for Laois, it's going to be very hard to see, I suppose, how they avoid relegation. I think they're playing Westmeath or down. I think actually it might be in a relegation playoff. So I'd say it's going to be hard for them, I'd imagine, to stay up from this point.
Yeah, they look a side low of confidence. I think they're missing a couple of players. I saw Donny Kingston was in the stand. He wasn't tugged out for them. Evan O'Carroll was their one outstanding player on the day, and he actually was a real handful for Kildare. He caused a lot of problems, and maybe on more than one occasion could have gone in for a goal with a little bit of luck, but it probably needs a bit more support. Mark Barry came off the bench and was bright enough as well. But yeah, overall, you know, they did look a side who had lost a couple of games, and they need to find a bit of a spark from somewhere. I'm not sure if they can do that in the space of 2 weeks. It's going to be a tough ask, I'd imagine now. I suppose the venue of that game maybe will be key, but yeah, it's going to be a big turnaround. If they can get a couple of players back, maybe that could give them a boost. You know, they had a couple of opportunities in the first half to kind of push Kildare and really put a little bit more pressure on Kildare. Kildare were 3 points ahead late in the first half, and possibly Laois could have been a little bit closer. As I said, they had a couple of chances, but Kildare got a goal then late in the first half, and from that moment on, really, they were well on top.
Absolutely, yeah. Like, and I suppose, like, what would you see is the expectation, I suppose, for Kildare for this year? I know obviously Leinster Dublin are obviously super powerful there. Like, it's going to be very hard to do anything there, I suppose. But what would you see as an expectation for Kildare now, kind of going in? Would it be to seal promotion to Division 1, or how would you kind of look at it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the next game now is Kildare's season on the line, really. I talked to some of the players and doing different things over the time, and coming into championship time, they will all genuinely believe that they have an opportunity of winning a Leinster title. Even talked to lads who've retired in the last couple of years, and they all say when they're in that bubble, they genuinely believe that if they come up against Dublin, that they are capable of catching them on an off day and beating them. But realistically, that I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. Certainly not this season. I think Kildare, you want to win a few championship games. Kildare probably were thinking similar last year. We're looking to get to a Leinster final and we're caught in the hop by Meath in the second half and we're outed in the end. Didn't even make that Leinster final. And as a county, I think there's only 4 Leinster finals since the last win back in 2000 under Micko, which is, it's not enough for a footballing loving county the size of Kildare. But at the same time, I really think their season really is on the line now against Meath. It's such a huge opportunity to get promoted. It is a different season. It's the opportunity was there that they, looking at the groups, there was maybe a slightly easier side of the group as well. So there was a huge chance there, and it's worked out very well today for Kildare. Couldn't have worked out any better for Cork to get that injury time winning point and set up this game against Meath. So, those young players that I mentioned, it would be a huge opportunity for them to play in Division 1, and it really would, aid their development. Kildare played there a couple of years ago under Cian O'Neill in 2018 and didn't actually win a game in it. They lost all 7 matches, and that rolled into a defeat against Carlow in the Leinster Championship. But a lot of those games were tight games, and Kildare ended up having quite a good summer there, although it was kind of the whole Newbridge or nowhere kind of things that spurred them on in the end. But just for the development of those young players, Division 1 would be huge. So I'd see this game against Meath as really more important than any of the championship games that Kildare play this summer.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose we'll touch on Carlow's victory over Wexford yesterday. Obviously, you're with the Carlow Nationalist, so I suppose I watched it myself as well. Like, it was a very close game, and I suppose at one point it certainly looked like Wexford were going to see out the victory. But I suppose in the end, with that late Dara Foley point, a good win in the end for Carlow.
Yeah, from a Wexford point of view, they're probably still 24 hours scratching their heads and wondering how they let the game slip from their grasp, and quite a costly defeat for them in the end, because obviously they missed out now with Waterford finishing second in that group. So from their point of view, to let that slip, they were 5 points clear after getting their second goal in around the 47th minute. And, at that stage of the game, they were well on top, and Carlow were having disciplinary problems. They had 3 players black carded from kind of half an hour on, so they were more or less down to 14 players for a good chunk of the second half. And Wexford will be definitely scratching the head, but from a Carlow point of view, it was a superb victory. Really, it could be, one of those kind of season-defining victories that galvanizes the whole team. And for a new manager like Niall Carew, who's in there trying to, change the whole philosophy and style of play that Carlow have played. Torlick O'Connor had a great deal of success with Carlow, playing, a very specific type of way. And there's no right or wrong way to play football. It's different styles make for different games, and it's what makes sport interesting and football interesting. But Niall Carew obviously has a completely different idea of how the game should be played. He's very much an attacking manager. He cut his teeth at inter-county level as the forwards coach when Kieran McGeeney was in with Kildare at a time where Kildare were racking up big scores. So, he really is somebody who wants his team to play on the front foot. And they had a great win against Waterford in the previous game, scoring 3 goals and racked up a good tally that day. And they started off so confidently that they scored the first goal and 3 points of the game inside the opening 10 minutes. But then, Wexford really came back into it. Dahi Waters came in midfield as a first half substitute, and he helped them really get on top. And I suppose the Carlow defence was a little bit wide open there. In that second quarter, Wexford had 3 good goal scoring chances that they couldn't take. But then they got a couple of goals early in the second half, and as I said, it looked like that it was game over. But Carlow just kept plugging away. They got a couple of scores. They never let Wexford kind of build on that 5-point lead, and they scored, I think, 4 of the next 5 points, even though they'd lost a man to a black card during that spell. They were briefly down to 13 men when 2 of the black cards overlapped, but just kept going and got a goal then 3 minutes from time to tie up the scores. And going into injury time, it was there was 3 minutes left plus 4 minutes of injury time, and I just thought that Wexford's greater need for the result would kind of spur them on. and they went ahead in injury time, got a good score. But as I said, Carlow kept going. John Murphy had a good game at centre back. He's a big, strong man, and he wandered into the 45, and it looked like almost Wexford were daring him to take the shot on rather than work it to one of the forwards. And he just swung the boot at it and went over. And from that, the kick out was didn't cross the 20-metre line. The pressure came on Wexford then, and they made a little bit a mess of their short kick out. And that gave the chance for the ball to be thrown up on the 20-metre line. And from then, Dara Foley hooked it over the bar. So absolutely brilliant win for Carlow, and sets up a good game now against Louth in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I seen that John Murphy point. Actually, that was a cracking point just towards the end of the game. I suppose obviously it'd be Louth in the league promotion playoffs. I suppose from what I've seen anyway. I suppose that'll be a tough game for Carlow. I suppose a tough test, obviously going up against a Mickey Hart team.
Yeah, it's hard to know what Louth. They hadn't appeared to have done great in the opening 2 games, and even today, the first half was, I think, fairly close before they pulled away into a big 10-point win. So, they'll arrive in great confidence. Mickey Hart has obviously created a bit of buzz around their game. I think Carlow have home advantage, and maybe have a few supporters in there as well, maybe 100 or 200 supporters, so that will be a big help. But Carlow actually won that game last night without 5 players who had started the game against Waterford. 3 players have picked up hamstring injuries. Ross Dunphy is a very important forward player, had a bit of an ankle injury, but I believe the scan for him has been positive, and he could return. And all 5 of those players will be pushing for a recall to the starting lineup. So that would strengthen Niall Carew's hands significantly. And it says a lot about them that they were able to get such a good win. Missing those players, they were helped by Jordan Morrissey coming back into the team. He was their second cup winner, of course, from last year with DCU. And he scored the opening goal for Carlow and had a big impact on the game. But I thought the 2 midfielders were excellent. Owen Root and Dara Foley, again, 2 big strong men, and also centre half forward Jamie Clark. He's really pacey and direct running there, caused Wexford a lot of problems. And Paul Broderick is just always a very consistent scorer as well. He just keeps the scoreboard ticking over. Any sort of free within 45, even beyond 45, is going over the bar, and he's a hugely important player for them. And yeah, very, very positive for Carlow.
Yeah, 100%, definitely a huge win. And I suppose I'd imagine the main kind of aim for Carlow now, I suppose, is just to, stabilise a bit, obviously with the change in management, and I suppose potentially a championship win maybe, and get back to Division 3, because I suppose it was only a few years ago that they were in a Leinster semi-final and got that huge win over Kildare as well, I suppose.
Yeah, like it's obviously a difficult time for all teams, but the last year or so, certainly for new managers, has been particularly difficult. Niall Carew even found it difficult to get the Carlow the club championship was stopped at the semi-final stage, so he didn't really get a chance to have a full look at the players at his disposal. He would have known a lot of the players beforehand. He spent time managing Palatine in the county, so would have had an idea of the players that were there available to him. And then obviously, they weren't able to train until late April this year. So he's still, I suppose, very much kind of laying down exactly what he wants from the players, finding out about the players finding out about him. So they're still in that process at the moment. That I think is Longford to play in the championship, which will be a tough game. But as I said, they're building a little bit of momentum through the league now. And this game against Louth again, could go either way. And if they can keep that winning run and keep that momentum moving into the Leinster Championship, I think Niall Carew will be very pleased.
Absolutely, yeah. Like, it's definitely going to be interesting, I suppose, to keep an eye on them and see how they get on, and Kildare, of course, as well. Cheers, Jer, anyway, for coming on. I appreciate your time.
No problem. Anytime.